Thursday, 14th of November 2019. With business news, Abdul Karim Zermi.
All right, let's again take a short break now as we bring newspaper review in a moment.
Our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atoyebe, is right here with us in the studios for a review session this morning. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kinsley. Good morning. Good morning, Claire.
Good morning, Bayo.
Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper this morning. The Nation newspaper above the nameplate says, no going back on social media regulation. Federal government insists. Details of that story can be found on page 4. Governors and chairmen back Oshomole and quit call unnecessary. That's the rider to that headline with details on page 7. Nigeria and others raise team on border closure and agencies to meet. That details, you have details of that story on page 10. Now, lead story of the paper says, Buhari to security agents, stop ballot box snatchers and violence fears in Kogi and Bayelsa. Election will hold, says INEC. That's the second rider to that headline. OMS has nothing to hide, says chair. And ICPC freezes 12.9 billion in MDA's accounts, recovers 3 billion naira from 59 directors. Oyetola presents 119.5 billion naira 2020 budget plan. And Dakolo's rape case empty, says court. And Reps OK Operation Positive Identification with details on page 40.
Okay, let's take a big look at the Daily Sun. And as expected, the big story is on Bayelsa and Kogi elections. The Sun has the lead story, Buhari takes stand on Bayelsa Kogi elections. That's the lead story. And on economy, you have the picture story, and that's as Vice President Yemi Osinbajo with Executive Chairman Alibaba Group co-founder Mr. Jack Ma, as well as Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, and some Chinese delegations after a meeting at the presidential villa in Abuja yesterday. Treading at the bottom of the paper, you have Edo APC crisis. Twist in Oshomole Obaseki rift. And there's a rider to that. National Chair, Governor Odes not suspended, says APC South Vice Chairman. Now, border closure. Nigeria, Benin, Niger set up committee on reopening. Details of that you can find on page 3. And just a little by the side of the nameplate to find more trouble for Dasuki as federal government moves to split cases against former NSA. Details of that on pages 4 and 5. Bayo.
Well, let's start with the story about the border. The border closure that occasioned in August is causing concern. And in pursuance of that, the leaders of Benin Republic, Niger, and Nigeria tripartite committee have met, and they have instituted a committee that will comprise those of the security agencies, customs, immigration, national security, and others that will review the situation. And the Minister of Foreign Affairs clarified that for movement of persons, ECOWAS protocol and documentation are still required for entry and exit into countries. Meanwhile, they will review the situation periodically and ensure that if situations improve up to the expectation, particularly measures that has been determined to be put across within the neighboring countries to stop smuggling across border are effective. then a consideration will be given to the proposal to lift the border closure. Meanwhile,
we hope this time that the parties to this meeting would keep to the terms, because over the years, we've had such meetings. Of course, we remember, neighboring countries.
You're right. In
Yes.
fact, the border closure was occasioned by the fact that the terms of agreement about smuggling goods across the borders were not kept to. That was why Nigeria they decided to shut the borders. And so we go back to the rules to make sure that at least we can coexist peacefully and within the rules of engagement with neighbors. Meanwhile, tomorrow is election day in Bayelsa and Kogi, but meanwhile, in Bayelsa, a court, an Abuja High Court, has granted a stay of execution on a court order that had nullified the All Progressive Congress governorship candidate, David Leon, from participating in elections. A federal high court in Yenagoa had banned the All Progressive Congress from fielding candidates for Saturday's governorship election. Meanwhile, the All Progressive Congress has said that it has secured a stay of execution on that, and therefore, tomorrow, they are also on the ballot. It may be recalled that Senator Lokobiri had actually gone to court to ask that he is the right candidate for the All Progressive Congress. In a sweet change, in a ruling by the court that even took him by surprise because Lokobiri described it as very strange, the court ruled that the All Progressive Congress did not have a candidate for the election Saturday. But they've gone to an appeal to set that ruling aside. Meanwhile, all 46 candidates will be participating in the election tomorrow. A scenario that what happened in Rivers, you remember, and Zamfara State, where the party did not have candidates, was almost rearing its head. And it started by the People's Democratic Party going to court to question the qualification of the deputy governor, and the court ruled that the deputy governor was disqualified. The latest ruling was that of the court, which has now been appealed. But meanwhile, President Mohammed...
There was a writer yesterday, I don't know if Kingsley would help clarify, because I think the petitioner claimed that the ruling was not what he sought in court.
Yes, he sought to be declared the rightful winner of the primaries, and therefore the candidate to contest on the platform of the All Progressive Congress. But the court ruled that the All Progressive Congress did not have a genuine candidate ensuing from the primaries. And that was why the complainant said that the ruling was even strange to him, because it was a relief that he didn't sought, that he eventually got, and he was precluded even from contesting.
No, well, what happened in the case of Bayelsa, that's the candidate of the All Progressives Congress, the decision of the Federal High Court was to the effect that the primaries of APC were not conducted in accordance with the constitution of the party, nor for the rules or guidelines set for the primaries. And therefore, the court in its considered judgment nullified the primaries, and therefore no candidate was said to have emerged from that process. That's one. But the APC also went on appeal. And yesterday, the Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja granted a stay of execution of that particular decision, because if there was no candidate, lawful candidate from the APC as heard by the Federal High Court, then APC would not have been on the ballot. And even if it was on the ballot, votes recorded against it would not count. But there is a stay of execution that has now been granted by the Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja. Of course, considering the expediency involved, the court had to take that particular route, as it were, to ensure that the rest, as we said, is not destroyed before the election. The substance of the appeal will be considered at a later date. But INEC itself has indicated that the elections, will go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Kingsley. Thank you.
President Muhammad Buhari, meanwhile, has appealed for all that there should be the people of Kogi and Bayelsa, that they should make transparent election a key factor of their concern. He had enjoined all to come out and vote peacefully, and also law enforcement agents to behave in an orderly manner. a spokesperson for the president, Garba Shehu, says that in every election there will be winners and there will be losers. Therefore, if for any strange of imagination anybody is not satisfied, they should go about it in the due process, peacefully and in an orderly manner. Democratic election, there will be a winner, there will be a loser, and all candidates should be ready to accept the outcome of the election. However, should anybody want to dissent about outcome, they should follow due process and not resort to self-help. Former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan has also drawn attention about concerns about hidden tension in the atmosphere of for tomorrow's election, and he's also calling for nerves to calm down, for people to go out and vote and let their votes be counted. On the case of the rape that has been reported, and an FCT High Court sitting in Buhari has dismissed a suit filed by Mrs. Busola Dakolo against Koza Pastor Biodun Fatoyinbo. Justice Uthman Musa, in a ruling, dismissed the suit with 1 million naira cost. He described it as a waste of and an abuse of the judicial process. The plaintiff says that they are not quite satisfied with it, and therefore the counsel for the plaintiff says they will appeal the case, in the sense that the court ruled that the case was 16 years old and was beyond the 6 years required, and it was therefore status barred, and awarded cost of 1 million to the defendant.
Well, Kingsley, you have other stories?
No, that's all. I was just on the front page of The Nation, since we have only 2 newspapers.
All right, so the editorial today, Bio, is on reducing judges' workload, and it's taken from the Telegraph.
Yes, before I go to that quickly, there's now evidence of what has always been described as budget padding. The Independent Corrupt Practices Commission has found from this investigation and recovered 99.2 billion from directors in ministries, department, agencies, and they have so far arrested about 59 persons. These were persons that were found to have added or included sums into the budget, which is described as budget padding. The ICPC went into field to inspect 100 constituency projects. They discovered 400. And they found out that a lot of monies have been paid, contractors have abandoned them, some of them have not worked, and they have taken them to the heat and they are recovering the funds there. The other story
is actually on the inside page of Daily Sun.
Okay.
Yes, and it says ICPC recovers 9.2 billion from directors, arrests 59 in ministry.
In fact, the Sun also reported the same thing by saying that they have recovered 12.9 billion from ministry and departments and agencies and recover 3 billion. So there are conflicting figures being provided. The other story I was trying to allude to is 37 senators of the Southwest have proposed a bill to establish Southwest Development Commission. You recall we have the Niger Delta Development Commission, we have the Northeast Development Commission. There is also a proposal for the Southeast Development Commission. Now the Southwest too are proposing for a development commission. We will now, in future, should be expecting a North Central and Northwest Development Commission.
And then a Nigerian National Development Commission.
Recently read something about the social media regulation earlier on from the paper. And the Daily Sun, the Daily Sun, yes, has that story on the inside page, and it says that we've begun social media regulation. So, it's good for the public to know that the regulation has started.
Social media regulation is something that has been agitated for. There are those who are speaking against it. There are those who are speaking for it. At the end of the day, there's a bill that is proposed in the National Assembly. Let's see how it goes through the crucible, and let's see what the outcome. Now for the editorial. The editorial is saying what is obvious, what all of us have been aware of. The fact that we have so many cases in the court. And the Chief Justice of the Federal High Court, Justice John Soho, has said that there are about 116,623 pending cases in the court. And you have a situation whereby you have about 16,144 cases that are filed in courts quarterly. And the population of judges in the courts are not increasing. And the express concern by the Telegraph is that even in the 2020 budget, there's no provision to increase the judges. Therefore, there is need to look at the judiciary, the concerns raised by it, and also the concern about judges still writing in longhand, which leads to snail speed delivery of justice. And they propose alternative dispute resolution as a means of helping so many cases in court.
Well, you've already capped it. You said it's saying the obvious. So we'd like to thank you.
Thank you
for joining us once again. Today's Friday, so I won't make that mistake. Do have a
I look forward to it. Yes.
Okay. All right. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We're coming up with our discussion in just a moment. Don't go away.
They are there at the crack of dawn. They are there busy preparing while we rise for our day. They are there silently, guarding, waiting, listening, and watching. They are there ready in the sky above and the waters below, in the blistering heat of the day, in the dead of night, willing, indefatigable, determined in the defense of the sovereignty of our country. They are our first line of defense and our last. They who have paid the ultimate price in defending us. They are fathers and uncles. They are mothers and sisters and girlfriends and boyfriends. They are brothers and cousins and best friends and neighbors. They are classmates, colleagues, and citizens of this nation. They are our defenders and deserve our respect, our prayers, our thoughts. Nigeria, please support our armed forces.
20 years of travel and counting. 20 years of promoting tourism in Africa and diaspora. Over 3 million kilometers traveled. Over 30 African countries visited. Explored the diaspora in 4 continents. Connected over 100,000 happy tourists to Africa. Reached over 50 million homes. Igniting smiles across Africa and beyond. As Kogi Africa turns 20, we thank you and invite you to join us in the quest for 20 must-visit destinations in partnership with the largest TV network in Africa, the NTA, Ministry of Information and Culture, Ministry of Transportation, Lagos State Government, Canon, Delta Airlines, Royal Caribbean, Tour Brokers International. You too can still be a partner. Call the numbers on your screen or info@gogiafrica.tv. Kogi Africa, celebrating 2 decades of heritage, travel and tourism.
All right, if you've just joined in, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria this Friday on the network service of the NTA. Earlier on, we told you that yesterday on this program, we engaged the umpire, INEC, as well as critical players in the Bayelsa and Kogi elections to give us insight into the state of preparedness in both states. Today, we're continuing with that discussion, but digging deeper into what is happening. So to start off our conversation, we have our correspondent, Abdul Malik Adio, give us excerpts from yesterday's program.
Okay, let's begin with INEC. Kogi and Bayelsa will be having their off-cycle governorship elections. Are you good to go?
The straightforward and simple answer to that is yes, we are prepared, but we have to give a breakdown as to our preparations in the sense that we are all non-sensitive materials had since arrived, pardon me, since arrived the 2 states. But as at yesterday, this distribution of sensitive materials commenced. Logistics is a big thing, and we're looking very closely at that. And what we call the rack centers. So the staging posts from which we will deploy to the polling units have been activated. Recall that previously we will go to the from central bank to the state office to local government office, but now it's going to go local government office straight to the rack centers. Then, of course, security. We've had several meetings with the security agencies to ensure that people are assured that there will be security and there will be a larger turnout, because obviously if security issues are not settled in people's minds, they'll be hesitant to come out.
So what is the situation report and what has been done to put any flare-up under control?
Beyond what people are saying, we have also been able to geolocate some of the areas we considered as trouble spots. We've also been able to identify groups and persons and clearly marked them, more like visual marking, and place them under very strict surveillance. It is on the basis of this intelligence that the entire deployment strategy are built upon. So our deployment strategy will be intelligence driven, they will be purposeful, they will be target oriented, and at the end of the day, our target is to ensure that we're able to provide a safe and secured environment for INEC to deliver on this mandate.
As usual, the stakes are high, and the politicians know how to play their games because they don't want to lose out of power. So those that want to take over are mobilizing. Those that are governing are equally mobilizing not to lose their seat. So you have a situation where two opposing forces are preparing for like war. But election is not war. Election is about whatever the process is, peaceful conduct that will produce a peaceful outcome that will be acceptable to everybody.
All right, now those were excerpts from the conversation we had yesterday on the Bayelsa and Kogi governorship elections coming up tomorrow, Saturday. We're going over now to Yenagoa, that's the capital of Bayelsa State, where we have joining us Esther Uzoma. She's a lawyer and a familiar face on Good Morning Nigeria, civil society observer for the elections and national coordinator, Proactive Gender Initiative. Esther Uzoma, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Good morning, Kingsley. My pleasure.
All right. Let's begin the conversation straight away with you. On the eve of the election, what are your observations?
We're ready. INEC is ready. We've interfaced with INEC. Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room, we were at the CBN for the deployment of sensitive materials. We also visited the 13 brigades where we interfaced with the army. 16 brigades, yes. We interfaced with Brigadier General V.U. Okolo. We were the police, we were the civil defense. From all indications, despite the fear of violence, the INEC is ready to conduct these elections. Security agencies are ready, they are on standby. The morale is high to conduct these elections. The question that, however, must be asked and answered is whether Bayelsans are ready for the elections. You see, you can take a horse to the swimming pool. You cannot force that horse to drink water. So we're ready. Let's see how it goes.
You're sitting quite comfortably, we can see. And except that we cannot see your face because of the face cap you're putting on, we would like to see, of course, the expressions on your face. But can you? Thank you. Now we know that this is the Esther with. Thank you. So Esther, I said you are sitting quite comfortably, which gives us, joy that perhaps, as you say, the security agents are quite ready. But yesterday on this program, the police PRO talked about deployment of intelligence, which he said will be purpose-driven. Does that, the environment in Bayelsa, does it reflect that?
I think that they are strategic in deployment. And we have seen that. The readiness, of the police, civil defense, even the Navy, all right, because they are using gunboats to also transport some materials, all right? It's purpose-driven, but ordinarily, remember, there was a state of affairs existing in Bayelsa before the elections. So, they are operating within that state of affairs. We wear our caps and we wear our tags so that we are easily identifiable. That we are just civilians and we are non-combatants. But generally, everything looks good to go. There are no logistics challenges for now. In our interface with INEC, the REC informed situation room that the drivers who will be deploying materials are profiled by road safety. So we expect that during deployments, as they normally do, they will not come up with strange demands, because road safety will be on them, ensuring that they respect the terms of their contract. So everything, we're good to go.
Still with you, Esther, in Yenagoa. Earlier, you said that, look, the electoral management body, the security agencies, and indeed all other stakeholders, including the observers, are ready for the elections. But whether Bayelsans themselves are ready is an open question. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, Kingsley, I did mention before the elections, there was a state of affairs existing in Bayelsa. I'm talking specifically of violence. All right? Bayelsa, is a state that is chiefly populated by one ethnic group. However, preliminary studies we conducted here indicated that there is likely to be violence in some local government areas. You see, no matter the level of preparedness, if the people of Bayelsa decide that these elections will not hold, if they decide to unleash violence, there is little anybody can do. So that is the position.
Okay, Esther, I see movement. I don't know precisely where you're speaking to us from, but I see very... Sorry, I cannot hear what you're saying, but I see movement around you. I want to presume that you are within the vicinity of maybe INEC? Esther, we didn't hear you.
Quarters in Yenagoa.
The incident had happened in Nembe, and the 11th, court judgments we hear. Has it affected anything in terms of the, reactions and the dispositions of both politicians and the people themselves?
Well, from our assessments, from facts available to us at the Situation Room, it has not affected anything. Morale is still high. I think people will come out to vote. And then more so, the statement issued by INEC, also further, strengthen the belief of the people that all parties will be on the ballot. So everything is so far so good.
Esther, thank you very much. Of course, standing with you there, is the INEC officer in charge of voter education and publicity for Bayelsa State. His name is Wilfred Ifoga. Wilfred, a pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria today. From the point of view of INEC, what's up with just 24 hours to voting time in Bayelsa?
All right. Good morning, Mr. Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Nigerians, and of course, Bayelsans. Good morning. Yeah, from the angle of INEC here in Bayelsa State, we are ready for the elections, and the preparations did not just start today. And I wish to corroborate what my director, Oluwole Osaze-Ozi, said in that clip you heard just now, and of course from our good friend here. This preparation started since when the timetable was released, May 16th, and of course notice of the election, August 17th. So from that point in now, we had about 14 activities for us to implement. So we are about implementing the last stage of it. At the beginning of this week, starting from Monday, the non-sensitive materials we are taking to the local government areas. Then as at yesterday, we received the sensitive materials which are currently in custody of CBN. So starting from 7 this morning, the stakeholders, our officials, led by the resident electoral commissioner, they are at CBN for the distribution of these materials. And these materials will be taken straight to the registration area centers. And we have 105 of them. And just to correct what was said later on by my co-discussant here, the gunboats will not be involved in carrying of materials, but they are providing protection for the election officials and of course the sensitive materials that will be ferried across the waterways. So that's the preparation we have for now. So we are ready and we are good to go.
Mr. Ifoga, thank you for reassuring us of INEC's readiness so far. But that's a familiar phrase with every election. INEC tells us, of course, that it is fully prepared and set to, deliver on its mandate. But considering the topography of Bayelsa, which we all know, might there be a challenge reaching the remote areas that are highly riverine, which has been characteristics of elections in Bayelsa?
All right. If you have been following our activities clearly, I mentioned that we are going to move our materials, especially the sensitive materials, straight to the racks. And that is the registration area centers. These are designated points within the registration areas that have been chosen to camp the officials for the election, and of course the materials for the election will be there overnight before the election day. Activities include assessing materials that were given to the poll officials to see if there are shortfalls, and within that same camp also the officials will have a refresher training to remind them of what they have been taught. And from there, the next day, as early as 5:36, they will start moving to the polling units. Yes, of course, you did mention about our topography. We are aware of that, and that is why we are actually relying on the Nigerian Navy and the Air Force, who will they are going to help us out with helicopters as well, especially for far-flung units, especially in the water area, where the need arises for them to speedily move materials to them. But for the arrangement we have on ground currently, we expect to meet up with the starting of the poll, which is 8 in the morning. But peradventure something occurs, we will now have to ask for the support of the Air Force to help us leave these materials to the units concerned.
Well, Wilfred Ifoga, thanks a lot for the points that you have raised, but your polling units are relatively fixed. And what we have seen this year is a lot of flooding in a number of states. I mean, Kogi and Bayelsa have been flooded. Now, what do you know about the state of affairs with regard to some of your fixed polling units? And assuming those locations are flooded, what will be the reaction or response of INEC to that environmental challenge?
I expect this question, actually expected it, but one thing you need to know is that people in Bayelsa, especially those in the riverine area, they are used to their terrain, especially with flooding.
Wilfred Foga.
So there's one thing that is clear. Of course, we have designated points as polling units. Yes, if that particular point is flooded, yes, they can locate the nearest point close to that unit that is above the water level.
Oh.
And of course, the election can take place there.
Okay, but has there been sufficient enlightenment? Because you find on polling day, voters are usually drifting. Some voters are drifting from one polling unit to the other, or the designated point for voting, and ultimately they are unable to find their names on the register, and so on and so forth. So has there been sufficient enlightenment to say, look, if you go to your location and you find that the water mark there is too high and therefore the polling unit is not functional, what should a voter do?
Even before today, the sensitization program we've had from INEC, as well as collaborating CSOs and NGOs, has been massive. And even as we speak, the group doing the door-to-door sensitization, they've done a good work in sensitizing the people. But outside that, the registers for each unit will be pasted so that eligible voters who were previously registered and of course have their PVCs, we find if their names are on the register of voter that will be used for the elections. But outside that, we have a team of poll officials for each unit, led by the presiding officer. And of course, we have the assistant presiding officer 3, who is expected to, even if the person misses the location and you find yourself in a unit where you are not supposed to be, they will check your voter card and, of course, enlighten you on where you are supposed to go and cast your vote. So all these arrangements have been put in place just to ensure that everyone is in line with our arrangements for the election and no one will be disenfranchised.
Thank you, Wilfred. Let me, if Esther is still there, I'd like to direct my question to Esther. Now that you have talked about this, enfranchising, not disenfranchising anyone, Esther, I don't know, sometimes we tend to forget, our brothers and sisters who are living with one disability or the other. Do you see any form of, inclusivity in terms of arrangements to enable them cast their votes? That's one for me. And secondly, one of our guests yesterday talked about the fact that politicians will not find that, we find that this will not be business as usual. Have you seen any sign of probably vote inducement or things like that?
Well, for the PWDs, INEC made some arrangements. In fact, they had a test run of some procedures for Braille, and then the need also to place PUs in areas that PWDs can access it, was emphasized, and they adhered to it. Now, for vote buying, our preliminary studies indicated that politicians are actually asking for details on PVCs. And this they pay between 10 and 20,000 naira for. So that is that for vote buying. However, Claire, increasingly, elections in Nigeria is becoming an extremely elitist affair. I'm looking forward to the day that gunboats will escort food, medicine to persons who are living in those areas that are not easily accessible. When we will send relief food and medicine to those people escorted by gunboats? When will our helicopters go to those remote areas that are flooded and send them food, medicine, mosquito nets? Must it always be for elections? It is increasingly becoming an elitist affair, and it is increasingly isolating the citizen from the process. Something has to give.
All right. Esther Uzoma, thank you very much there for your points. Of course, you are getting into the area now of good governance, which is critical, no question about that. But if we earlier indicated that we're going to discuss Bayelsa and Kogi, and we just want to find out from our engineers if we can go over to Kogi. If they're not ready, then of course we'll have to appreciate our guests in Yenagoa, and that will be Wilfred Foga, who is the INEC officer in charge of voter education and publicity in the Bayelsa election, and of course for Bayelsa State, as well as Esther Uzoma, a lawyer and a member of the Situation Room observing the election in Bayelsa. Thank you very much for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria today, and best wishes. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the rest of the program.